I'm Chris Yandick. Today on CYInterview, we welcome CYInterview sponsor, the founder of Epic Financial Strategies LLC, Mr. Rob Gill. Rob, thank you for joining us again on CYInterview. It's always good to see you. How are you, sir?
Honored to be here, Chris. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And also joining us, of course, is Rob Gill's Chief of Staff. We've also seen in the past on CYInterview, Alexa Criollo. Alexa, thanks for joining us again on CYInterview. It's great to have you back. How are you?
Amazing. Happy to be here.
So we're going to focus on some inspirational topics today. One of them will be inspiration. But to begin, let's talk about motivation. Rob, what is currently motivating you, sir?
Yeah, I think, and I never like to correct, that word used to mean something, motivation to me, but I think I more feel inspiration as the proper word that goes into my energetic transformation. So inspiration for me is, how do I serve? How can I help make the world a better place, one person at a time, through whether it's financial education or through AA or through coaching or mentorship? What can I do to give back at all times? And the more I stay in that mindset, the more that I'm able to be uplifted. Like it's like a plane, the more the resistance is, the higher it goes. If I decide to take back my best thinking and become more self-centered and selfish, what begins to happen is I fall back into a different place. So inspiration to me is about service and contribution.
Inspiration is going to be topic number 2, Rob. But before we get to that, Alexa, where do you get your daily motivation from? Where is it for you? What is it for you that you love when you come to the office every day and are working with Mr. Rob Gill?
Great question. Well, first, I think the definition of motivation for me has changed a lot throughout the years because I do think it's something that's fleeting. Motivation, you could feel it, and then when things get hard, it's sometimes not the most stable thing to rely on. Like Rob, I'll bounce off of what he said. Whenever I get into a space where I'm not feeling my best, I think about someone that's not me, because usually we work harder and do better when we're contributing to someone else and to a bigger picture, right? So when I think about Epic and what this stands for and who I can be, if I could be a better person, who I can lead by example, right? So I think that is what motivates me every single day, not counting the hours, just kind of doing what needs to get done to push the business, the mission forward. It's about that. It's about who's watching and who can I inspire to be better and who we can impact, right? Because there's people that need us in what we do. So that's really what motivates me.
Okay, Rob, so we now get to the word that you love of the moment, inspiration. You know, I think all of us are looking for inspiring things in our daily lives. So what are you currently being inspired by?
You know, I think that Epic Elite means something very powerful to me, financial literacy. I think that understanding how to touch people in a way that, you know, even if it's, let's say there's I don't know, I'm just making this up, but if there's 1,000 people listening to this and I could have a 30-minute conversation and 3 people get something out of it, and 1 has a child that becomes a billionaire and employs over 100,000 people, you know, I did my job, right? So I think inspiration to me is more about not a change for the day or a change for the week, or to Alexa's point, like a short-term sprint motivation, but inspiration to me is I'd say a paradigm shift, a complete another personality shift on who you can be by breaking through the ceiling of complexity and understand that your environment doesn't have to dictate, you know, where you want to go or your peer group. And there's certain tools, technologies, and methodologies you could do in order to be able to not only get inspired, but the science behind it, the technique behind it, the ingredients behind it, how to stay inspired, even when you're having some ebbs and flows in the middle of that.
Alexa, where does your inspiration come from every day?
So I think there's 2 things I could think of right away. One of them is my parents. I think that I've seen nothing but great examples from them. As I grew up, it was hard work, and they did the most they could with the resources that they had, which I think it's inspiring, because the world looking outside in can say maybe they don't have enough, but they were happy because they did the most they could with what they knew, what they had. And that's incredible. The second thing is Rob, actually, because I think I've you know, speaking on Epic Elite, I've seen him go from, you know, doing what's necessary in the business, but then doing something that has nothing to do with business initially, and it was really more about just impacting that one person. And that's really where you know, how do you say, like the magic of what he was able to create, which I think it's awesome, right? He really cares. And I think that he's always trying to put people in the right position to succeed. He's insanely generous. And to be able to go from where he started in his life, his journey, I've learned a lot about that in the past few months, writing the book and everything. So I've that's in my nervous system, his story from where he started to where he is. So I think that is inspiring.
Rob, we're now going to move on to passion. That's one of the things that leads people to their calling in life. Where does your passion come from?
It's funny. The great and late Jim Valvano spoke. This was after he won his championship, but before he died of cancer, and he talked about the importance of enthusiasm, passion. And you could be book smart, you could have great ideas, but nothing gets accomplished without energy and passion, enthusiasm. In the end, that is a necessary, in my opinion, ingredient towards moving the needle. You could sit down and talk all day long about what's going to happen, but until you get into action, and then within getting into action, congruent action, passionate action, enthusiastic action that has sequencing and an outcome with a map, I think that is the difference in zeros in business. I think that's the difference in how you live your life. I think that's the difference in impact. And you could be very enthusiastic, but not have a game plan and be able to move the needle just from enthusiasm. But if you really want to understand how to go from 90 to 95 to 99.9 to 99.99 to 99.999 to 99.999, which basically in money terms is $56 million a year, it comes down to passion.
I want to bring up something, Rob, that you touched on. Of course, let's just give a little history for people. Of course, Jim Valvano, the head coach of NC State, they upset the Houston team in the NCAA finals with that last second dunk shot. Yep. Then, of course, Jim Valvano has cancer, and everybody remembers more than that. They remember Jim Valvano for the famous ESPY speech, where he gets up there and he accepts the award. He is literally dying of cancer. And he also touched on in that speech, if you remember, the most inspiring speech from the ESPYs, that people also need to have laughter every day. They need to cry, and they need to have thought. And they need to have thought.
And hug.
And a hug. Yeah. And he said, if we do those things every single day, that's a heck of a life.
Yeah.
And anybody who's ever looking for real inspiration in life should go watch that speech. When I was in college at the University of Florida, in an advanced public speaking class, we had to all come up with an inspiring speech, and that's the one I did. And
to that point, and by the way, that was an unbelievable speech, and he couldn't even make it up the steps, if you remember, and he flew up there with, Coach Krzyzewski, as well as, what's his name was there waiting for him?
Can't remember.
The announcer, I can't think of it, but on
Dick Vitale?
It was Jimmy V, Coach Krzyzewski, and obviously
was it Dick Vitale?
Dick Vitale, and he was thrown up on a plane, and greatest speech he's ever given. But one of the things you also said in that original speech I was talking about is every day he sees ordinary people, but ordinary people do something extraordinary every single day, right? So I think that I'm an ordinary person, thank God, one day at a time. I think I've learned maps, and I think I've learned strategies, and I've had the right coaches around me that teach me how to become, in certain pockets, in certain inspirational moments, how to be extraordinary. And I don't take any credit for it. It's God, and it's my mentors.
We can learn so many things from people in all walks of life, of all backgrounds. And I absolutely, when I, just returned from the trip of Kenya, I was telling you guys about before we began this, I learned so many things from just ordinary people. But again, everybody just wants to have a good life. Everybody wants to be productive. Everybody wants to do something positive every day. Most people want to find love. I mean, these are all things that are similar for people, no matter where you are in the world. And that's the thing that we should take away. So, now moving to Alexa, where does your daily passion come from, Alexa?
I think that for me, it comes from the fact that I truly believe energy is everything. Right. So the way you do something matters. And I've learned, I think, the most from, sports, playing sports in college and not being really that good and ending my career in college being someone that was recognized for her athleticism. So
what did you play in college just before
I played lacrosse.
Okay, go ahead.
But I actually stuck to the sport only because I loved it. Like I was so passionate about it. It was something I learned later in life compared to most of the people I played with. But I loved it so much that even though I didn't get playing time, even though I didn't feel a sense of community where I was at that moment, I didn't quit. But it resulted in so many really benefits that I still enjoy now. Commitment and intensity and all those things, and community teamwork. So for me, it makes a difference of what you get out of an experience. So for me, yeah.
Can I ask Alexa a question,
Yes.
Chris? Can I ask her a question?
Rob, this is a segment where you can take the wheel and ask your colleague a question. Absolutely.
Because this is important. So here's my
This
question.
is fun. This is going to be fun.
No, it's good. So because this is going to share.
No, I'm excited about it, Rob. I'm excited.
So if you were able to take today's brain and go right back, and because you talked about there was no community,
Yeah.
right, and go back to the 18-year-old version,
Mhm.
right, 19, where there was this definitely, there was a separation, there was little cliques. What would you do differently if your today's brain was in your 18-year-old brain? Like if you could have the ability to go back and correct that, what would that look like?
I think knowing what I know now, I maybe would have made I would have made more of an effort. I think for me, I checked out at one point.
Yeah.
To protect myself, right? That was my defense mechanism. I didn't want to get hurt. They weren't really nice.
Yeah.
But finding a common ground.
Yeah.
And
Bill Spadia.
And really, there you go. Yeah. Common
Yeah.
ground, and really focusing on that, because what you focus on grows. What you focus on becomes where
the energy goes.
Where the energy goes.
Where the focus flows, the energy goes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would have done. I think part of me got it. I was indifferent, and then I became kind of angry and resentful, and that wasn't great. But I think I would have
normal. And by the way, I would say, Chris, in those situations, that comes from the leadership of a team, the coach, and some of the senior, junior leaders. And if you get a freshman that could come in with the formulas and strategies, I'm interested to see if you checked out after 1 week or a month. You still showed up, but I'm talking mentally.
Yeah.
Was the checkout fast, and would you do something different in that space?
I would have been more interested.
Instead of being interested.
And instead of expecting someone to want to learn about me,
Got it.
I would have went out of my way even more to learn about everyone and build rapport, because that's what we do day in and day out. So I think that would have been my approach. And
awesome.
They would have been like, wow, I really like this girl. Yeah, probably because I'm learning about you, talking to you, and I'm listening to you. So
yeah,
that would have been different.
And Chris, for us, we always want to learn who we're talking to first before we tell our story.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's an important distinction. Awesome, thank you.
Well, before we get to the final topic, since you had a chance to ask Alexa a question, Rob, Alexa, do you want to ask Rob a question?
Ooh, what do you got?
All right, I guess my question is talking about motivation, inspiration, and passion. I consider you a very passionate person. I see it in business every single day.
Yeah.
When did you notice that about yourself?
That's a great question. When I noticed that that there was a formula that in sales, I got to go to sales, right? So that there was actually a mechanism that I could dictate based on effort, how much financial resources I could have. It was after I got sober. It was after I read Cialdini's book, Chris, the first one, Six Tools of Persuasion, that Jay had taught me 4 years before that, but I didn't listen. But then I read. Great book. Yep. That book taught me a telephone presentation that set me free amongst my peers, who at that point were opening maybe 10 or 15 accounts, and I started opening 60 or 70.
Wow.
It was August of 2000 when that actually happened. And I was able to simulate that and train people to do the same thing. And that said to me then that I was onto something that no one understood. And that's when I had the confidence to become a leader within that little, ecosystem that I was part of, which I did. I trained 7 other guys. They did the same thing. I went from making 100 to 300. Then I found the insurance side to making $1 million a year. And that was over a 7-year period. But all my flaws and all my insecurities and all my I'm not worth temperatures still existed as that money began to identify me and be my identity, which then I had the good fortune of arresting and being able to take that next step forward. So since 14, it became a science I now understood that there's not just the individual producer, but there's someone working on the business. That's where Sean and Chris, Tony Robbins, those other people taught me how to become a business person. So now it's like, bringing both of them together. But now some of my challenges are people over personalities, principles over personality. How do I deal with, people's personalities and in a way with patience, tolerance, and love, but also not codependent and be able to draw a line in the sand. So that's my new elevation point.
Rob, so then following up on that, given all of your accomplishments and stuff you just talked about, what are those dynamics of success? What does it take?
I think success has to be a level of fulfillment inside. I think you have to celebrate small successes along the way. If you're just looking for this is my optics in 2023. If we went to 2030, I could have a different perspective. But success to me is staying true to a process mastery that got you to where you are, but being open to know that if you want to take that next step, you may not know the people that are going to help you get to that next step. And constantly learning, not making the same mistake twice, but also feeling a sense of fulfillment. I'm not going to use the word balance because balance to me sounds like, all right, 9 to 5, I do this, 6 to 10, I do that. But a level of weighted, maybe not equally weighted, but precise weighted time consumption or time distribution to different areas of your life and making each minute count. I know for me today, I make time count more than I may have 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Every day, every conversation means something different to me now than it may have even 5 years ago, because time is very, to protect time becomes a key for me. And what I allow into my brain based on who's around me also becomes important. And I can't get too much caught in the weeds the way I used to, because it could really hurt me.
Alexa, how do you define success in closing?
I think success means first doing what you say you're going to do, right? Because that gives you confidence. You start to really trust yourself in what you say.
Yes,
so whether that's measured daily, weekly, monthly, annually, those sorts of things you could break it down like that. And I think another way because I think it's important to measure success in different ways. Giving the best that you have that particular day, because our energies vary every single day. And making sure that you're also helping at least one person a day. It doesn't have to be something crazy. It could be, a piece of advice. It could be getting back to the person, listening. Yeah. The gift of listening is something that most people don't get every single day. So those things, I think, when you look back and you reflect, because how are you going to know what's a success if you don't even think about what you did that day? I think reflection is important. You want to make sure you're learning, and you're also giving yourself a pat on the back when you do the things that you say you're going to do and when you help someone. So yeah. I think all those things together, they make you feel really good. And that is what success is, right? Because it doesn't matter what your life looks like. It matters what it feels like. And so I think having those things in mind, you'll have a lot of good days, and that leads to a really good life, which is success.
Rob, final comment for this segment?
Listen, Chris, thank you so much. Once again, I love your audience, you and Jay, what you've built so systematically, so organically, so grassroots. Your journey from Florida to where you are now, and I identify with your Kenya trip. I felt that way after the Ukraine. I'm sure there's a lot of similar things that we both went through with that. And
sure,
just grateful to be here. Grateful that I still have Jay always just in my world. You know what I mean? Even though we don't get to talk as much as we used to, I still feel his presence even through you and at all times. And I just hope that whoever listens to this, if there's anything that I've added, that can help them get through the day. That's the most important thing. And then sharing the stage and microphone with Alexa is a phenomenal gift. I want to thank you for that. And thank you, Alexa, for being part of this and sharing your story. And Chris, can't thank you enough with all my heart, brother.
I appreciate the compliments very much, Rob. Like you, I'm very grateful to know Jay Goldstein, my colleague here in CYInterview. And then secondly, I think the word grateful is a great word to use after you go travel somewhere else. And you see the challenges that other people are dealing with in America. And then you come back to America and you realize, if you're in America, there is always so much hope for you to turn your life around. In these other countries, people have limited ways to move upward mobility. They're limited. They can happen, but they take much longer and they take much more discipline. And it's easier in America. What you could probably accomplish in America in a couple of years would probably take a decade or two in other countries. Is my point. So that's what you learn when you come back from somewhere like that. But more than anything else, as I told you before, we are all more similar than we are different, no matter where we grow up in the world. And two last things that I always tell people, and Jay always talks about this as well. There are two things in life we cannot choose: who our family is and where we are born in the world.
That's right. I agree 100%.
So we just have to make the best of whatever our circumstances and make our life better every day. So I'm going to leave you both with that. Thank you both for being on CYInterview today.
Thank you, brother.